get it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the SchuZ Show. I'm your host, SchuZ Shoemaker. Joining me to kick off today's show is a man that holds a 1-0 record. He's one of the most promising prospects in all of Scotland right now, and honestly in all of the UK. That is Reese Lynch. Reese, I appreciate you taking time to come on today, man.
Hello, how's it going? Are you good?
I'm doing great, man. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm good, man.
Absolutely. Well, Reese, I want to get into one thing to start off this show. You obviously finally made your professional debut. I know it's been a couple of weeks now, but to finally have that first pro debut underneath your belt, how does that feel?
Yeah, it's brilliant. Obviously it went exactly how I wanted it to go.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just good to finally get out. I mean, I was waiting about for a little while, trying to get contracts over the line and stuff. And it paid off worthwhile getting to debut on that kind of show and put on the performance that I did.
When you talk about being able to debut on that type of card, obviously it's an incredible card back home for yourself too. Gets to be a home debut. How special did that make everything?
Yeah, do you know what? Not many people get to have a home debut, especially
Right.
in Scotland, um, with a big promoter like that. So, it was brilliant having that home crowd and getting to do it back at home. I've not boxed at home for a little while, so it's
Right.
good to be back.
When you look at your very first performance, obviously having a second round KO and went according to plan for yourself, what did you learn? Or was it more just an opportunity to go out there to kind of get the nerves out, kind of just go have your first fight? Or what did you take away and learn from the fight?
I learned that them little gloves are lethal. um, no, I just learned. I just learned that my style can adapt to pro pretty well.
Right.
Obviously, there was some doubts with the way I boxed amateur if I'd move over and transition into a pro as well. But after that performance, I proved that I'll be a pretty good pro.
I was going to ask you about that because when we look at your amateur career, and we're going to get into that in a little bit now, obviously that transition is different. The amateur and the pro game is much different, obviously. Do you feel like for you so far, the transition has been quite easy? Was it been still a little bit difficult? Or how would you say the transition has been for yourself?
I wouldn't say it's been easy.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit different, like sitting
Right.
down on your shots and keeping my hands up. I mean, as an
Right.
amateur, I used to box with my hands down, so it's that you can't get away with stuff like that as a pro,
Right.
or you can get away with it to an extent, but not as much as I used to do it. So it's just obviously working on them different things and drilling it constantly in the gym. But I feel it's all coming together. Just at the start, it felt a bit alien.
Sure. I also wanted to ask you because there was an interesting opponent that you talked about too. When you were talking about competitive fights, you didn't from your last amateur fight to your pro debut was about 13 months for yourself. That had to be
Yeah.
a little bit difficult. So walk us through that. Just going over a year without stepping in front of the ring in a competitive nature. How was that year and a half off for yourself?
So it was pretty. It started to get pretty hard towards the end. I was
Hmm.
pretty optimistic, if you know what I mean, that I'd get
Yeah.
out pretty early. But obviously, Queensbury were busy. They've got all them shows
Hmm.
with out in Saudi,
Right.
um, and obviously they had all that different stuff going on. So getting the contracts over line took its time, um, and then it was just a waiting about. I was getting ready to fight, and then I was like, the dates would keep shifting. So it'd be
Hmm.
like fighting in November, then it'd be like January or February. So it was like I was getting ready for a fight all the time, and it
Okay.
never really came. And then I spoke to my nutritionist and went on a bulk for probably like 6 weeks, and then I got the fight date. So then I went into the camp. So I was kind of keeping myself ready, and then
Okay.
when I finally got that date, I went on a bit of a bulk. I was actually going to box at 61, lightweight,
Okay.
and then I spoke to my nutritionist, and I was like, "Do you think I should box at that or bulk up to 63 and a half?" And they said bulk up
Mhm.
to that. So
Okay.
kind of got that in between, and then it was fight day. So
I want to ask you a couple of different components you just talked about there. One of which is that when you look at in hindsight now that you already had your pro debut, it's underneath your belt, being able to have 13 months to work on yourself from a nutrition standpoint, developing the right proper skills to go make the pro jump, was it almost a blessing in disguise in a sense now that you kind of got a whole year to grow and get ready to be a pro?
yeah, well, I always spoke about that. If I had
Hmm.
went to the Olympics, I would have kind of took that time out that I could have and grow into a pro rather than rushing into it. So it
Right.
probably was that kind of blessing, just having
Mhm.
that time to develop as a pro and work on sinking down on the shots, keeping the hands tight. Do you know what I mean?
You also mentioned that over that standpoint, you were almost trying to get ready for a fight all the way back in November. Obviously, it doesn't end up happening up until May. So, walk us through that aspect. When you were trying to get ready for a fight for many, many months, what is that just on the mental standpoint? How did you go through that component?
Yeah, it was difficult. It was just training away, like getting ready for it. I was always going to keep ticking over anyway, so it
Mhm.
was just that getting the contract over the line. But I knew it was coming. My manager's a good manager. I've got good coaches. My brother
Right.
around it as well. Yeah, he's my coach, so I've got good people around about me. So it was just keeping ready and doing the right things rather than just sitting stagnant.
When you did get the contract and said, "Okay, you're gonna make your debut on that card with Ekow Essuman, Josh Taylor in Scotland," what went through your mind?
It was actually like a dream come true.
Mhm.
Just debuting on that bigger show, and then eventually as well, like I didn't know if I was going to get that TV slot.
Right.
So as soon as they announced that, I got told on the way in that I'd
Mm.
be on then, but I was maybe going to be a floater. Um, and then when the lineup got announced and they brought out the poster with
Mm.
me, after obviously the first fight,
Right.
it was like different class.
Absolutely, man. Well, I want people to get to know you better because obviously you're one on your career. You still have a long career to go, but you've already had a great career. I want people to get to know who Reese Lynch is. So if we go all the way back, obviously we've already talked about growing up in Scotland. What was that like?
Yeah, it's good. I love Scotland.
Hmm.
I'm a pretty patriotic guy. Um, and obviously getting to compete for Scotland, stuff like that. I just come from a little village in the middle, smack bang in the middle,
Okay.
Glasgow and Edinburgh. So it's just a little village. You know what I mean? Go to school, just muck about with your mates. There's not much to do here. You need to go to the cities to have much to do.
Right.
But it was an honest upbringing.
At what point in your life did boxing come in to be a part of your life?
So I probably started about well, I played my brother played football. He was
Okay.
pro youth. So he played with like teams like Chelsea and that when he was like a youth player.
Okay.
Um, Celtic, Rangers, all the big teams. He played with a few of them. So I tried to play football, or soccer, and
Yeah.
I wasn't very good at
Okay.
it. So my brother got me. He would take me on the pads and stuff like that. Like, but just nothing serious, just mucking about. I used to
Sure.
love hitting the pads. My brother's best mate at the time, he used to box as well, so he'd have gloves, put them on, have a mess about, punch him in the face or something like that a few times. And then I eventually went up to a boxing club maybe when I was like 7, 8, 9, something like that. And then I went up to a club in Fauldhouse, kind of left it for a year, and then went up to a club in Spring Hill, which I had most of my amateur career until I
Right.
went to Rob Roy after that. So yeah, I've been in it since I was young. Um,
Okay.
had my first fight when I was like 11.
When did it click that you knew that you could be somebody special, whether that be as a great amateur or even know that you could make the pro jump? Because you're a guy, world bronze medalist, the first Scottish to ever win that medal at the event, a Commonwealth gold medalist. Like you are a very accomplished amateur career. When did you realize that, you know what, I can be someone really good at boxing? This could be my life that I'm going to go pursue.
Um, Probably when I first won the Scottish.
Okay.
So I was like 14,
Gotcha.
and I probably didn't know to an extent how good I could be. I just
Mhm.
knew I was decent at it. I could win Scottish titles and stuff like that. Um, but it probably wasn't until I turned junior slash youth, so 15, 16, 17, kind of like that. I
Okay.
started winning international tournaments and stuff. And then I went to a tournament called the Golden Gloves, which
Hmm.
is and I think it's the Golden Gloves, sorry. It's in Serbia.
Mm.
And I boxed, so that I won it 2 years in a row. So it's a youth tournament, so you can only go to it twice. I won it
Okay.
2 years in a row. And I beat some good boys in the first tournament. I beat a Thai lad who, after I beat him, he went and won the Youth Worlds and he won the Youth Olympics. So
Right.
like beating that kind of caliber probably certified to me that I could do something.
Another aspect I want to touch up on is when you are obviously going through the boxing amateur ranks, the big decision that I know a lot of guys want to do is obviously go to the Olympics. I know you fell just short of that component right there, but when you talk about that, was that always the plan to go pursue the Olympics, or did you ever consider turning pro prior to the 2024 Olympic or the 2022 Olympics?
Um, when I first started, and when I was boxing international and stuff like that, I never really planned on going to the Olympics. I was
Okay.
always kind of fixated on the Commonwealth Games. But after I won the world bronze medal, um, Team GB invited me down, and they basically said that I'd get on the team for winning that medal. So
Hmm.
from then, I kind of thought, why would you throw that opportunity away, if you know what I mean?
Right.
Um, so it was just kind of from then that I decided to kind of pursue that.
Walk us through that time span because you obviously fell just short of it, but you're going through a lot of injuries and obviously ended up losing to Patrick and the Englishman obviously a little bit later. But walk us through that whole time span because there had to be a lot of ups and downs, a lot of difficult moments for yourself. What was that time of life like?
Yeah, it was kind of tough, just working through the injuries and stuff. So I went to the first qualifier in June in
Hmm.
Poland, and before that, at camps and stuff like that. So we were in Italy, and I was getting a bit of back pain, kind of like up my back,
Okay.
and if we thought it was muscle pain, so I was doing stretches and rehab stuff to help it. And then I went to the qualifier. I was boxing with the same injury. I
Hmm.
couldn't really throw my backhand right. I was pawing at it rather than fully extending it and whipping it. I was just
Okay.
kind of pushing it out. Um, Obviously, I lost to a good Bulgarian there as well, and Rizanov, who's a top class fighter anyway. Um,
Hmm.
and then after that, I went on holiday. I had a month off, and then I went back to GB. So I was on holiday. I was still getting this pain. Went back to GB, back to training. So I had been back for about a month, still working like it was muscle pain. And then I went. Actually, one of the American boys was up Emilio Garcia, and I was sparring
Hmm.
him, and I took a pasting off him in the sparring. I couldn't
Hmm.
defend. I couldn't throw. I was just getting this. It was like a sharp pain up my back.
Hmm.
So I went, got the physio, and they started doing a bit of work on it. They were like, "We need to get a stretch," and I kind of turned around to them. Said like, "I need to go for a scan, because like there's something not right here."
Right.
So obviously went for a scan, and it came back that I had broken ribs on my
Hmm.
back. So it was working through that and trying to get back as quick as I could, but obviously I couldn't do anything.
Right.
Running was hard. Like with that, I couldn't really do it because when I was breathing, it was affecting it.
Right.
So I couldn't actually do anything. It was just kind of like sit and wait. And then both sides went. So after this side had started healing a bit, my right side went as well. So then it
Hmm.
was just prolonging it. I had to wait just as long for that as well. So yeah, it was pretty tough. And then just try to get back to it after it. Like it was like rushing back. I couldn't really get back to myself quick enough to be able
Hmm.
to compete against these top boys.
When did you feel like you started reaching yourself to get close to 100% again? When did you finally feel like you were healthy again?
So it was probably just after that
Okay.
tournament where I boxed Patrice, the one in America. Just after that, so we went to Thailand. I went as a reserve because obviously Patrice beat me, so
Hmm.
he was going to the qualifying, and I went as a reserve, and that's probably when I started feeling back to myself, which was
All
just
right.
a month too late.
Hmm. Obviously, you talk about Patrice. He still is a young, up and coming prospect as well. Is that a rematch you'd like to do in the pro rank someday down the line?
Do you know what? If it came to it, then that's it. It's fine. He's a good lad,
Yeah,
um, nice lad as well. So, but boxing's boxing, and you got to fight who you need to fight.
absolutely. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, but essentially for yourself, then you had the injuries, and I think you ended up missing about 9 months or whatnot in 2024. You returned then in 2024, and then you obviously ended up taking another break that we already talked about, the 13-month break. So you're looking at like 2 whole years of almost being gone, of obviously a lot of ups and downs. To finally get to the end of that time span, what did it feel like to finally say, okay, I can move on now, and we finally overcame all these different obstacles?
Yeah, it was just kind of a relief.
Right.
getting through it all and getting to eventually get back in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Obviously, it's kind of different. Like the one between amateur and pro, I was still training away. Um, I was in with my brother, adapting to the professional style.
Right.
Whereas the one before the one with the ribs, I couldn't do anything. So like, that was
Mm-hmm.
probably more relieving to get back in the ring,
Right.
knowing that like this is over now. I can get back to being get back to what I'm used to doing. Um, yeah.
So you signed the Queensberry deal then, and if correct me if I'm wrong here, but the contract should be for 5 fights a year. When you finally got that contract and you said, "Okay, I'm going to move pro," what about that time in life? You say, "You know what? I'm ready to make the pro jump. I want to go and pursue my pro dreams now."
So I kind of made that obviously just after that Thailand tournament. Um, when I was in Thailand, I was talking to some people and stuff like that as well. So
Okay.
I had kind of already decided that that's what I was going to do. When I was going to that tournament.
Now for yourself, we'll talk about the future. You want to know you have your first fight underneath your belt. How quickly can we see back in the ring? Is there an upcoming day that we could see you, or when do you think you're going to get back in the ring?
I'm speaking to my manager now. There's not a exact date yet, but we're
Hmm.
looking at. I spoke to Lee after my fight as well, Lee, and he
Right.
said that it'll be before the end of summer. So we're talking August, September, something like that.
Okay. When you talk about your deal, I kind of already alluded to it though. Your contract should be for 5 fights a year. So for the next year or two, what's your goals and plans? Like, what do you want to accomplish, get done? Is it just kind of getting a lot of fights underneath your belt, or what do you want to accomplish over the next, year, year and a half, 2 years?
Yeah, so it's just obviously getting the fights under the belt,
Right.
um, getting getting used to being in there, maybe doing the rounds with some guys as well. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Stepping up correctly.
Hmm.
I'm still young as well, so there's no rush really.
Right.
But I'd like to be pushing for titles towards the end of the second year, if not
Okay.
a bit earlier than that.
I also want to get into some about Scottish boxing because on that same card, we know Josh Taylor's been the guy. He's been the guy that's kind of representing Scotland for the past long time now. Obviously, after he lost to Ekow, we don't know exactly what's going to happen if he wants to move on from boxing or whatever the case may be. But right now, we're looking at the future, and I think Nathaniel Collins is probably the guy right now if we were to look at everybody and what they've accomplished. But you're obviously in the mix as that next guy for the future. You're the most anticipated prospect, all these different things. When you talk about the future of boxing in Scotland, how bright is it?
Yeah, it's very bright.
Hmm.
There's lots of good lads. There's boys that I was on. I went to Commonwealth Games with that are all coming through pro ranks now as well.
Right.
The likes of Sam Hickey, he's signed with Boxer. Tyler Jolly, Lennon Morgan, Matty
Right.
McHale, Stephen Nunes, stuff like that. Loads of guys coming through. And then you've got your likes in Nathaniel. And a lot of the boys that had the fights on that show as well. That was great for Scottish boxing because you could you could see all the talent that is coming through.
When you talk about yourself, as I said, you are one of the most anticipated prospects, if not the most anticipated prospect coming out of Scotland right now. Why should fans be excited about you? What are you going to be bringing to boxing to be able to represent Scotland for the next 10, 15 years, maybe even?
Just a skillful style. I feel like I can adapt to most boxers as well. Um, I'm pretty explosive. A lot of people might not think it just from my amateur style, but I can be explosive. Sharp shots, counter puncher. I can box in the front foot. I can box in the back foot. Um, yeah, just exciting.
What does it mean to be able to represent Scotland? As you go out there every single time, wear that flag, represent Scotland, what does that mean to you?
That's There's nothing better than going out there and
Hmm.
representing your country. Um, I've always been a proud Scottishman. I always will be.
Right.
So just getting out there and getting to represent your country and win stuff, win titles, win medals, representing your country. There's no better feeling.
In the future now, you're going to have more and more eyes on you. I'm sure there's already a lot of eyes on you, obviously, growing up, but is there any pressure that comes with representing Scotland?
Nah, no, not so much pressure.
Okay.
I'm used to it. I've been there and done it as a amateur. So nah, I just enjoy it. Just having that kind of wearing the flag on your sleeve. Um,
Absolutely.
it's class.
I also want to ask about this because being obviously out here in America, I don't think we understand some of the rivalries out there a little bit more. But obviously, when you talk about the UK as a whole, you guys kind of get classified with Britain with everybody else out there. But within the own country as themselves, is there quite a rivalry between you guys and Britain?
Yeah, as in England.
Yeah,
As in England, yeah. It comes for history, really.
right,
So there's a bit of rivalry between Scotland and England. And it always gets built up. So if a Scottishman's fighting an Englishman, it always gets built up in the exact same way that it's Scotland
right.
versus England. But I don't think the boxers look at it like that too much. They'll probably
I was
play on
wondering.
it just for the entertainment. But no, there's not. It's not so much as a big rivalry. But if it comes to sports, then Scotland versus England in football or boxing or whatever, it always gets built up a bit more.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. I could kind of tell. I know whenever the promotion people come out with that, obviously it's all built up around that. But so you're saying for boxers overall, you guys don't really look at the rivalry components more, so just getting the job done then.
Yeah, so it's just you're fighting who you're fighting in front of you. It doesn't matter if
Right.
they're English, doesn't matter if they're American, but you want to beat them, don't you?
Yep.
So it's just one of that. It's just that aspect. The promoters will use it to build it up, but
hmm
as a boxer, you're just fighting the man that's in front of you. It doesn't matter where they're from.
I love it, man. Well, Reese, I've got one final question for you. It's the question I'm wrapping up each and every single interview with, and that's talking about your legacy. Obviously, your story is just getting started. You got a long, long journey ahead of you. But when the day does come and you decide to put down the gloves, you move on from boxing, what do you want to be remembered for? What do you want your legacy to be for what you accomplished both inside and outside of the ring?
Just want to be remembered as obviously a world champion or
Right.
undisputed, something like that. I want to leave a statement on the pro game, be up there with the like Scottish greats like your Josh Taylor and your Ken Buchanans and stuff like that. I just want to be known as a nice guy as well, a good guy. I just want to be
Uh,
a role model to people coming up.
I love that, Reese. Well, Reese, I appreciate you for taking time to come on in, man. I cannot wait to see what God's got in store for you in your future, and best luck when you get back in the ring, man.
Thank you, Zach, man. Appreciate that.
Cool. Of course, you're always welcome on, Reese. Talk to you later, man. God
See you
bless.
later, man. Thank you.
I appreciate each and every single one of you guys for tuning into that interview. I'm going to have that clipped up, edited out, and then posted on my YouTube channel very shortly. I'm going to go on a short break right now. We'll get into some boxing topics. And then, as I said earlier, at the top of the hour, Ekow Essuman will be joining the show as well. I'll see you guys very shortly. God bless. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the SchuZ Show. I'm your host, Zach SchuZ Shoemaker. So, to give you guys an update on how the show is going to look going forward now, we're going to get into a fight preview. There are 2 fight cards going down on Friday tomorrow that I'm going to break down for you guys. Then, I'm going to be getting in some boxing news. We'll go on a break after that point, and then we'll get into my interview with Ekow Essuman, who will be joining the show at the top of the hour. So, you're not going to want to miss any of those components there. But with that being said, hope you guys are having an incredible Thursday so far. Hope you guys are having a great day. So, let's get into the fight preview. Out there in Ghana, Africa, we're going to have a fight card going down. It's going to have quite a few interesting cards. I'm going to break down the fight card a little bit for you guys right now. The main event is Andrew Tabiti versus Jacob Dickson. He is going to be for the WBC Africa Bridgerweight title. The former world title challenger Andrew Tabiti, who is 21-2 with 17 KOs, he'll be traveling out to Ghana to face the knockout artist Jacob Dickson, who's 14-1 with 13 KOs for the vacant WBC Africa Bridgerweight title. This is going to be an interesting fight. Andrew Tabiti is a much more recognizable name. Obviously, he fought Justice Hooney a couple years ago in his fight. He's also challenged himself in a lot of other big fights in his past future. Now, Tabiti, to give you guys a little update on him, he's a Las Vegas-based veteran. He's known for speed, power at cruiserweight. Now he's moving on up to the Bridgerweight division. Whereas Dickson is the Ghanaian fan favorite. He has fought almost exclusively at home, but he has not faced a lot of guys of top-level talent like Tabiti. When we look at this fight, Tabiti is much more athletic. He has a sharp jab, good footwork, but has shown a lot of vulnerability under pressure, hence against Justice Hooney. Dickson is explosive early, heavy hands, but untested against elite competition. What I think is going to happen in this fight, I expect Tabiti to win by mid-round stoppage. This could be an interesting player at the Bridgerweight division and possibly even the heavyweight division in a year or so. But Tabiti has had a good career at the cruiserweight division, as I said, moving up now to this Bridgerweight division. So I believe Tabiti will come out victorious in that fight. Co-main event, Daniel Gorsh versus Altoe for the WBO Africa Bantamweight title. Undefeated Ghanaian champion Daniel Gorsh is 15-0, will defend his WBO Africa Bantamweight title against fellow unbeaten prospect Altoe, who is 9-0. Gorsh is a very rapid rising star, known for his work rate and ring IQ, while Tony is a decorated amateur now making his best fight to this point in his career. For those of you that are not familiar with Gorsh, he is a pressure fighter, great stamina, sharp body work, whereas Atoli, he is a counterpuncher, composed, and a very strong footwork. This is a true 50-50 showdown. This will probably be one of the bigger fights for the locals because this is going to be a fight that will attract both parties into this fight. It will be interesting to see what happens. What I do think will happen in this fight is that we're going to be going to a decision in this one. I think Gorsh will come out victorious, but this will be an interesting fight to keep an eye on and monitor tomorrow in Ghana, Africa, because the winner of this does put himself in position to be a lot more recognizable in the bantamweight division. This one's also an interesting fight. The next fight up I'm going to discuss. Brandon Glanton will be making his return. Remember, it was just a few weeks ago, about a month and a half, I should say now, that he fought his most recent fight back in the UK on the Conor Ben Chris Eubank Jr. undercard. He's already making his return. The interesting thing about this one is that he already announced this fight that he's going to be fighting on about a couple days after his loss when he fought last. So he's getting back to the ring very, very quickly here, where he'll be taking on John Napari for a cruiserweight clash. Brandon Glanton, he is 20-3 with 17 KOs, where John Napari is 23-3 with 17 KOs. This will be an 8-round cruiserweight fight. Glanton is known for his knockout power and willingness to trade, most recently, as I said, coming off of his loss to Chris Billum-Smith, in which he did not look the best overall, but Chris Billum-Smith definitely had the better edge on him, but Glanton's already making his return. While Napari, he's a local veteran, strong chin, but he has struggled against international competition, so this will be an interesting fight for him. Glanton should come out of here and win by early knockout. And I think that's the main reason that we're seeing Glanton get back in the ring this soon. As I said, he already had a tough test against Chris CBS. Getting in the ring where he can go get an easy win in an interesting environment, that's what I feel like this statement's here for. Glanton wants to go out there, get that statement win, get himself right back on the large scale heading into the back end of this year, possibly get another good top 10 matchup or so in the cruiserweight division. So Brandon Glanton will be back in the ring tomorrow fighting. Another interesting return, Ohara Davies. He'll be returning against Muhammad Al-Seni, a welterweight bout. Obviously, Ohara Davies. He is 25-4, 18 KOs. He is returning after announcing his retirement just a little bit ago. Remember, he fought Adam Azim, decided to go make his retirement announcement. Well, those plans are scratched. He's back to boxing again, and he's going to be fighting the Tanzanian Muhammad Al-Seni, who's 22-9 with 13 KOs in an 8-round welterweight contest. Davies is a former world title challenger, known for his power, brash personality. Al-Seni is a tough journeyman, has fought across Africa with mixed results in his career. This should be an easy win for Davies. He should win by decision, if not stoppage. I think it's going to go to decision here, though. I think there will be some rust. I think because of his ring inactivity, we're going to see a little bit struggles a little bit here and there. But I do think Davies will come out victorious in this fight, and we'll see what he does from there. Is this just a one-off experience for him to go out there and fight this fight and on a high note and then move on from boxing? Or is he interested in returning back to the ring in the near future? That's to be determined. A couple of the fights going to be on this card, though. Harana Muhammad against Ahmed Abdullah. Also, Abdul Khan versus Joseph Stacke. These are the two fights that's also going to be going off to start the card tomorrow night in Ghana, Africa. Let's head over to Philadelphia, United States of America, where we'll be having OTX 14 card. That's Overtime Elite for those of you that are not familiar with that. Kurt Scooby, Haskell Rhodes. They're going to be co-main event, lightweight main event for this one. Undefeated knockout artist Kurt Scooby. He is 16-1 with 13 KOs. He faces the veteran Hackman Rhodes in a 10-round lightweight headliner. Rhodes 31-7-1 in this fight. Scooby is explosive, very aggressive, a riding wave of momentum. Well, Rhodes is experienced, crafty, but has slowed down as the age has caught up to him. I think Kurt Scooby will go out there and have a signature knockout. His use and power should be decisive in this win, and I think this too. Kurt Scooby is somebody to keep an eye on. He has been riding up in the lightweight division. He is somebody to keep an eye on. I think he's a guy that could be easily marketable. Could get a relatively decent fight next if he pulls off a stunning victory against Haskell Rhodes on tomorrow's card. Co-main event, Brandon Pizarro versus Israel Mercado, NABA super lightweight title. Philly's own Pizarro will be returning back home for this fight. I think he's going to get the decision win here. This should be an easy win for himself against Mercado. Dennis Thompson, an interesting rising prospect. He's 19 years old. And he's 6-0 already. This will be an interesting prospect fight. Keep your eye on him. Also, Tyreem Haywood. He's an interesting prospect. 5-0. Faces Frank Brown tomorrow. This will be an interesting fight as well. He'll be going out there and fighting. Now, there is one other guy I want to touch up on real quickly. Tahir Small, who will be fighting Clarence Booth in a welterweight fight. He'll be returning back home to Philadelphia. Here's why I say this is an interesting one. He was on the Jerome Boots Ennis for Stanionis undercard. And he was very impressive, in my opinion. I thought he had one of the best performances on that card. He's a rising prospect as well at 14-0, fighting Clarence Booth, who's 21-11. This should be an easy win for Tahir Smalls. I think he'll get the win by decision in this fight, possibly even by KO. But his youth and speed should carry him on. But make sure to keep your eye on him. I think that Tahir Smalls is somebody that I was really attracted to in that last fight. He looked incredible in that performance on the Boots and his undercard. And he is somebody that I mentioned this after I broke down that fight on that Monday, that he is somebody that I think has a chance to be very competitive in the future. Still ways out, but he looked very good when I last saw him. And so I'm excited to see him back in the ring. He is somebody to keep an eye on tomorrow, fighting early on the OTX 14 undercard. I'm going to go on a quick break once again, then we'll come back and get into some boxing news. But make sure, for those of you guys that are tuning in, go in the comment section right now. Leave you guys comments for subjects, topics, whatever you guys want to discuss. And we'll be getting right into that when I get back after the break. I'll see you guys shortly. Welcome back to the SchuZ Show, everybody. I'm your host, Zach SchuZ Shoemaker. This portion of the show for the next, what do we have now, 15 minutes until Ekow Essuman joins the show, we'll be dedicated to talking about some boxing topics going down right now. If there's anything you guys want to discuss, leave it in the chat right now, and I'll make sure to address that as we go throughout this portion of the show. So let's get right into it, though. Per promoter Samson Boxing, a deal has been made with Top Rank Boxing for Edwin De Los Santos, whose WBO 135 title challenge versus Keyshawn Davis was canceled when Davis weighed 4.3 pounds overweight, has been paid 50% of his purse. His purse was $330,000. He was paid out $165,000. Top Rank was not obligated to do so. Very interesting details. When we were about almost a week ago now, when the disastrous weekend began for Keyshawn Davis, there were reports coming out that Edwin De Los Santos was going to be able to receive the full purse. Now that the deal has been sent and signed, he is only going to get 50% of it. Still win-win for Edwin De Los Santos, obviously not Keyshawn Davis. Edwin De Los Santos obviously went through a tough weight cut, gets paid $165,000, and doesn't have to step in that ring. However, I would have liked to see him get $330,000, but obviously that was not going to happen. I was a little skeptical when that first got announced as well, but still a solid deal for him overall. What I will say is this. Edwin De Los Santos has gone through countless unfortunate circumstances, dating all the way back to obviously he had his most recent fight against Shakur Stevenson. He ends up going through 18 months or so being off out of boxing because of literally his life being on the line, dealing with all the different health scares that he was going through. He gets back into the ring and plans to get a world title shot against Keyshawn Davis. And this all happened. So, in my personal opinion, I hope that we do see him get a chance to fight on a big card in the near future. Obviously, I don't expect it to be for a world title shot or anything along those lines, but give him a big shot. You know, there could be many opportunities, one of which comes to mind, Canelo Alvarez, Terrence Bud Crawford undercard. That is something I could see have happened, though. But regardless of what the situation is, he deserves to get placed on the card, get paid, and get a decent fight opponent in the near future because he earned that by being able to actually be the only guy in that world title shot that actually stepped up to the plate and got the job done. Alan David Pascasio versus Kamita on July 19th at the MGM Grand Arena in Las Vegas as part of Pacquiao Barrios that has now been announced. Very interesting fight here. Let me comment on what I think is going to happen here in this fight. When they announced this fight to be announced, my personal opinion was that we're going to see this fight go down. And the reason for is that Pascasio wants to go fight a fellow Japanese man to be able to build up his name out there in Japan and possibly get a shot at Inoue in the winter months, possibly for the December fight. I was going back and forth with a couple different guys or somebody in the discussion of my Inoue video I posted yesterday. And the truth is this. Inoue's dad does not want him moving up to 126 until after Junto fights. And if I were him, I think that's a wise decision, although I do trust what Inoue wants to do. If Inoue does remain at 122, fighting Pascasio up there in December would make a lot of sense because then you're going to go fight Junto Nakatani in 2026. Or, sorry, December you'll fight Pascasio. Then 2026 you'll fight Junto. Summertime of 2026 is when Inoue will officially move to 126 and can go do the Nick Ball fight or whoever is up there unified, whatever the fight is to make up there at 126. That makes the most sense, but I do like what Pascasio is doing here because I think he does have a plan here by doing this. The WBO has now officially ordered Sam Noakes versus ring ambassador Abdullah Mason for the vacant WBO lightweight world title. The two sides have 20 days to agree to a deal before the bout heads to purse bids. Thank you, WBO. This is exactly the fight that people want to see. It's the fight that makes the most sense. Abdullah Mason, Sam Noakes, book it. That's the fight that needs to happen. If you're asking me the perfect scenario for this fight to go land on, it should be the undercard, co-main event, if you can't get another bigger one, for the Terrence Bud Crawford, Canelo Alvarez undercard. This is a fight to place there. Why do I say that? I talked about the fact that being on Netflix for the Canelo Alvarez, Terrence Bud Crawford fight card is going to be massive for people that want to grow and get to see the sport. A free event, anybody can go and watch it, and it's going to build the brain of a lot of people. When you can place two guys that could possibly be rising stars in American boxing and worldwide boxing, if you're Sam Noakes, this is exactly the place to be. Those two guys fighting as co-main event will have plenty of eyes on them. And that could possibly form the next budding superstar in boxing. That's the fight to make, in my opinion, underneath Canelo, Bud Crawford, and Canelo and Terrence Bud Crawford fight card. Let's head over to the UK, and I'm just going to list off some news that came out recently in the past 48 hours. The David Adeleo, Jamie TKV British heavyweight title rematch will land on an August 23rd Queensberry show in Manchester. That will obviously come off the very controversial fight that happened with the ref pulling down TKV's arm, making them go out there. TKV gets KO'd. This is going to be the rematch to that fight that caused a lot of controversy. Sam Gilly, Ishmael Davis has been ordered to fight for the vacant British super welterweight title. Very interesting that this was the decision to make here. Sam Gilly is coming off of a very interesting performance this past weekend, where he finished with a draw against a guy that he should have easily taken care of. That's an interesting chance to give him a guy like Ishmael Davis. Is a little bit shocking to myself, but that's the fight that got announced. An agreement has been reached for Jack Rafferty to defend his British super lightweight title against Mark Chamberlain next. That's an interesting fight. I do like that fight right there. Zach Miller has been ordered to defend his British featherweight title against Rise Edwards next. Rise coming off a good win last weekend. That's also a good fight to make. Final British notes I want to get into. Peter McGrail has been ordered to face Dylan Arbuckle in a final eliminator for the British super bantamweight title held by Dennis McCann. This is the interesting situation here. Dennis McCann has been suspended for PED use. He fought Peter McGrail most recently, and Peter McGrail obviously lost that fight. In my personal opinion, Dennis McCann should not still have the belt, and at this very same breath, also Peter McGrail should not have to go fight another fight to work his way back up to be in the British featherweight title contention. So it's a very interesting situation, but hopefully we do get the rematch, and it's a rightful rematch for Peter McGrail and Dennis McCann. All right. Jake Paul has claimed that his team has now started negotiations with cruiserweight world champions Badou Jack and Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez for his next fight after Chavez Jr. Jake also claimed that he would be open to fighting Jai Opetaia in the future. If Jake Paul fights Jai Opetaia, it's going to be lights out for Jake Paul. Now, much props to him. If Jake Paul does in fact take on a world champion, I'd give props to him. By all due respect, if Jake Paul goes out there and fights a world champion, I'm going to have no problem with that whatsoever. That's what we've all been calling for. And I can't be a hypocrite here and say, well, Jake Paul, why are you going to go fight one of these guys now? No. Much respect to Jake Paul if he actually goes out there and fights one of these guys. But I think reality will come true there, and it would be a very ugly display. Now, obviously, there's levels of the cruiserweight division. Badou Jack is far and away the least of the guys at cruiserweight if you're going to look at champions. The gap between Badou Jack and Zurdo and Jai Opetaia is massive. So if he's going to go after a guy like Badou Jack, that's a much more reasonable fight. I still don't know if he's going to win that one, but you know my point there. Whereas you look at a guy like Zurdo, I don't think he's going to do anything to Zurdo. And especially if you go talk about Jai Opetaia, who is, in my opinion, the best cruiserweight in the world, Jake Paul versus Jai Opetaia would be a scary show. And I think that's why he's not going to go after Jai Opetaia. And what I do like about this statement right here is Jake Paul puts it pretty darn clearly of what the kind of the landscape looks like at cruiserweights. Nobody wants to mess with Jai Opetaia right now. We all see that. The fact that Jai Opetaia cannot go get a unification fight right now with Zurdo as he's been wanting proves that people don't want to face Jai Opetaia. I think that it's a very commonly known thing that Jai Opetaia is that guy at the cruiserweight division. And he would destroy anybody that comes across his path in the cruiserweight division. And that includes, obviously, Jake Paul if that were to happen. So Jake Paul obviously pushing aside the Jai Opetaia fight makes a lot of sense. Even Zurdo, though, if Jake Paul takes the Zurdo fight, I've said before, it would suck because you don't get the Zurdo Jai Opetaia fight next. But it would be interesting to see Jake Paul really accept that. If Jake Paul steps up to the plate, fights Zurdo, we have to give him respect for that. At least he's stepping up in the ring and fighting that guy. Is it a fight that I really want to see? No. But I'm not going to sit up here and be a hypocrite as I've judged him for saying you're going to go fight guys like Mike Tyson, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., so on and so forth, and yet he goes out there and fights a world champion. I'm not going to be a hypocrite here. That's exactly what we want, so I've got no problems with that. Let's head over to my last bit of news I want to get into before I go on a break and we get into the Ekow Essuman interview. Between June 28th and July 19th, DAZN Boxing has 3 pay-per-view events in addition to either the annual or monthly subscription fee. This is ridiculous. The 3 I'm referring to right now, Jake Paul, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., Usyk Dubois, and the whole, Williams Zepeda, Shakur Stevenson, and then the Berlanga and Hamza Shiraz, that whole situation. Those are 3 pay-per-view events going down within 3 weekends of each other. Unacceptable. And if I were to be the guy behind this whole situation here, first of all, Paul Chavez. I understand Jake Paul he is the biggest brand in boxing. Obviously, if we're going to look at it, he has a little bit different category to himself as opposed to, some of the big brands. But the biggest brand in boxing right now is Jake Paul. I understand why that's going to be pay-per-view, but it should only be pay-per-view in the United States of America. End of discussion. When you look at Usyk Dubois, that one I could understand that being a pay-per-view event for everybody around the world. But due to the time issue, I would not be shocked, and I would like to have seen that fight not be a pay-per-view in the United States of America. It does not have quite the appeal that it does have in the British world. And then for William Zepeda and Shakur Stevenson, Hamza Shiraz, Edgar Berlanga, that fight should not be pay-per-view whatsoever. I don't know who wants to pay pay-per-view for that fight. In fact, let's look at the numbers right now. That card in and of itself can hardly sell any tickets right now at the tennis stadium they're going to be fighting at. So what's to make you think that people are going to want to go pay a pay-per-view event for Shakur Stevenson, William Zepeda, which I do not think will be a good fight whatsoever, as well as Edgar Berlanga, Hamza Shiraz, which I do think is a decent fight, but that's not a pay-per-view event. So this is going to be 3 pay-per-view events, and all I can say to that is Firestick Boys are going to be back outside. So shout out Two-Tone for that one. But people are not going to be paying 3 pay-per-view events on top of monthly subscriptions for 3 fights in 3 weekends. Unacceptable. Especially when you look at the marketing, there's no reason, like I said, Shakur Zepeda, Hamza Shiraz, Berlanga card should not be pay-per-view. Usyk Dubois, I'm fine with it being pay-per-view, preferably United States of America, should not be pay-per-view. And then Jake Paul, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. should be pay-per-view in America, but shouldn't be pay-per-view anywhere else. That's my personal opinion on this one. Unacceptable for these to be 3 pay-per-view events in 3 weeks. That's a problem that hopefully gets addressed. With that being said, though, I'm going to go on a short break, and then we're going to get right into the Ekow Essuman interview to wrap up today's show. I will see you guys very shortly. May God bless you guys all. I'll see you guys very shortly. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the SchuZ Show. I'm your host, SchuZ Shoemaker. Joining me now is a man that holds a 22-1 record with 8 KOs. He's ranked number 5 by the WBO, number 13 by the WBA welterweight. He's also the WBO Global Welterweight Champion. He's coming off of a massive performance against Josh Taylor. He was with the nickname The Engine. That's Ekow Essuman. Ekow, appreciate you taking time to come on today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, first things first, Ekow, you're a couple weeks removed now from your massive career performance. What's going through your mind now as you've been able to reflect on the Josh Taylor fight?
Let's just move on, like full steam ahead. I was
Mm-hmm.
calling for that kind of a fight for quite a while after winning the British title. When I got offered the fight, I grabbed that opportunity with both hands. I wanted a world level opponent, so I could prove my ability, and that's exactly what I did.
When I was previewing the fight, a couple days before the fight went down, we all know Josh Taylor. We know his career. He's a very accomplished fighter and so on and so forth. And the biggest thing was about this is that obviously for people that know Ekow knows that you're not going to back down. You're going to keep going through 12 rounds. And that's the way you fight. You fought your entire career that way. And we saw that come to fruition. We saw the way you fought the entire fight. And that after about round 5, I'd say you were pretty much in the books for every single round. Really from round 3, I feel like you were in control. But from round 5 to round 12, you were in complete control. Was that the game plan you had going through that, like knowing that, okay, I know I'm going to be myself from round 1 to 12. I have to wait and kind of let it kind of sort itself out?
Um, to a certain degree, I can start fast as well. As I said
Right.
in the build up for the press conference when Josh was mentioning if Hank has to come out, he has to come out, and I thought, well, that'll be a mistake for him because I didn't believe he'd be able to keep that pace for the whole fight.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was part of the game plan. Let him come out. We knew obviously he's come up from the weight below. He's sharp. He's got a full bag of tricks. So the first few rounds, especially if he was trying to hurt me and whatnot, it was going to be quite tasking on him. He wouldn't realize it, having
Yeah.
just moved up in weight, gained all that muscle, um, got fit, and he wouldn't have had to make weight the normal way he would have made weight.
Yeah.
When you actually have to go through a little bit of hardship to make weight, you wake up early, you'll sleep late, you'll go on those extra late night runs, you'll do that extra little bit hoping that the weight will come off. And it might seem like a curse at the time, but it's also a gift if you think about it, because you're doing a lot more than you normally would if you wouldn't have to. And
Right.
with him being saying that, yeah, he'd made the weight easy and this, that, the other, I was thinking, okay, that's cool, because
Hmm.
I'm still gonna be doing those extra bits. So when that oxygen debt hits you later on with all that new muscle that needs even more oxygen, you're gonna feel it, and he did.
I never thought about it that way, but I know so many boxers do talk about the psychological component even before the ring, and you kind of alluded to that right there. So when you talk about that, are you looking at the way your opponents, specifically you just talk about Josh Taylor, how they answer questions, how they're reacting during fight week? Does that kind of help put a play in how you're approaching your fights with him?
Oh, you have to do it very carefully. You have to do your homework, diligence,
Sure,
uh, and then you can work out certain habits, what they're like during fight week, what how to tell if they're bluffing, how to tell if they're serious. If they're someone who shoots from the hip, then you know what they say is exactly like they mean it. They like
sure.
to play mind games. You know, you need to take things with a pinch of salt. I do my due diligence.
Okay. Let's go back into the fight with Josh Taylor. At the end of round 3, you buzzed him. He went to the wrong corner. At that point, I looked at it and said, okay, that's a moment you hurt him. Did you see that when it first happened? And if so, what kind of flipped the switch in your mind to saying, okay, can I kind of gotta go attack him now heading to round 4?
I didn't think much people realized that. I had a little laugh to myself. Think
Okay.
my co-manager. I sat down on the stool and I said, I just buzzed him. And my
Hmm.
co-manager must have shouted to him as he was walking off, "Welcome to welterweight."
That's
I
funny.
I had a little giggle about that. Yeah, no, I did realize he paused for a second,
Yeah.
and then obviously he walked to the wrong corner, and I was like, "Ah, got you." Yeah, it's but that also could have invited Hank into the situation. So I
Mhm.
knew it didn't really mean much. I didn't hurt him to the point he took account, he was on the canvas, he was more visibly hurt. So it's one thing hurting someone, but obviously if you wake a sleeping lion, he's gonna come out roaring. So
Mhm.
I just expected him to tone up the pace or the intent in the next round.
When did you feel like you kind of had the fight in the bag? And obviously with judges, you never know what's going to happen. But when did you feel like you kind of were in control of the fight?
I didn't necessarily the way I think. I never really think I have the fight in the bag because I think there was one
Okay.
fight when I fought Owen Cooper. I generally thought I was up on the cards going into like round 9. Then he
Yeah.
hit me with a good shot, put me on the canvas, and I came back to knock him out. But then when um, I got word that going into the last round, well, before the knockdown, I was 3 rounds down, and I was thinking, really don't know how that makes sense. But it just reminded me, like, you just can't leave it to the judges. Like,
Mhm.
and so, like, one of my mottos is every round I've got to hurt him. Every round, if they touch the canvas, that's a good round.
Mhm.
So yeah,
I will echo. Everybody knows your name now, but I want people to get to know your story a little bit better. And so we have to go all the way back, though. You grew up in Botswana. That's where you're born. You spent the first 12 years or 11 years of your life out there. What
yeah.
was it like growing up out there?
Oh, it was different. Like, I come from a Ghanaian family or household. I say that because, like, you can be born in Botswana, but some of the jurisdiction and whatnot, being if your father's father, so your granddad, isn't from there, then at the time you could live there with something called leave to remain with no recourse to public funds. So you could live there but not work, and so it's kind of like you're not really from there.
Really?
Like it to me anyway. It's like
Okay.
acknowledgement. Yeah, you were born there, but like no recourse to public funds. You can't work there. Like you're kind of in a deadlock situation, so you're always going to have to leave at some point.
Mm.
And it's a beautiful country. Don't get me wrong. Like I absolutely loved being born there and growing up there. I learned so much about the culture, and I love the culture. It was little bit of culture shock. Obviously, Ghanaian household and you're living in Botswana. But yeah, I can't knock it. It's made me who I am, and I love it. And then we came to the UK in 2001. That was an even bigger culture shock, es- especially in America, in Botswana, learning kind of American English, and then
Mhm.
coming over to the UK and yeah, yeah, in schools that yeah, I was the butt of many jokes as and the fact that I was a bit weighty when I was younger. So
Okay.
for me, I got into sports back when I was in Botswana. I got into rugby, funnily enough, and I was
Okay.
quite sharp and nifty, and yeah, had something about me in that. I played a bit of cricket as well, and at the time, the thing that made me lose the most weight is I got on a swimming team. Um,
Mm.
yeah, believe it or not, yeah,
That'll do it.
we can swim. uh, and yeah, that got me fit. And made me lose a bit of weight. And yeah, eventually came to the UK. My dad was doing a doctorate in education, so I come from a family of academics. My mum used to own a big textiles firm or business in Botswana that I was doing really successfully. Uh, but we ended up moving to the UK for like just uh, no, I was coming to the UK so we could start our secondary level of education here.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe you also, when you got out there, you started playing basketball too. Is that correct?
You've done your research. I like it. I like it. Yeah, so in secondary school I started off playing football, and but then it led me into basketball. And
Okay.
I got to a really good level at basketball. I was a point guard because I'm
Mhm.
not the tallest of people.
Right.
So shortest guy in the team, I had to be good at obviously ball handling and whatnot. But one year I wanted to get into the best team in Nottingham.
Mhm.
I think they were called the Wildcats at the Jesse Boots Arena,
Okay.
and I went for the tryouts, and I thought like um, I'm going to the right place. I'll be kind of near the level because I started playing to nearly England level
Mhm.
basketball before trying out there. But they told me I wasn't ambidextrous enough, so I couldn't dribble as good on my left side as I could on my right, which is fair
Mhm.
enough. And they also said I needed to get fitter as well.
Okay.
So I took a year out of boxing, well, basketball,
Right.
to get fitter, and to work on my left hand dribble as well. And one of my mates who was in the army at the time told me there was nothing that was going to get me fitter than boxing.
Mhm.
So I gave it a go
Okay.
and went into the gym with my two left feet and a clubber of a right hand, and I just fell in love with it. To be honest, to me, like growing up in Botswana, there was a good few nights where my dad and I would stay up or go to like one of his friends' houses and we'd stay up and watch a Mike Tyson match and get all hyped about that. And
Right.
I'd be punching his hand, kind of doing pads on his hands and whatnot. But we didn't think much of boxing. It was never like oh, one day you'll grow up to be a boxer kind of thing. It was
Okay.
just for the fun of it. And I always used to think, oh, boxing is just whoever can hit the other guy the hardest first. So I was in for a rude awakening when I went into the boxing gym. I actually started realizing there's a lot more. There's a lot more to it. It was
Mm.
more complicated than I thought, and I started falling in love with the little intricacies in boxing, and I always think of it more as an art style, kind of like your martial arts, like
Right.
because there's so many techniques that you can do, but there isn't necessarily a right way to do them, and you can manipulate how you do them in different situations and contexts and whatnot. So yeah, it really sunk in with me. I liken it to physical chess, where you mess up and you will feel the consequences. Yeah,
Mhm.
and I think my favorite part of boxing at the time was I felt like it was more of an individual sport. Obviously, coming from team sports like basketball, sometimes someone can carry the team or carry
Yeah.
the team in a match, and people would be like, "Oh, so and so let us down," and this person isn't pulling their weight.
Right.
And so boxing kind of lured me in even more because I felt like you get out of it what you put in as an individual. Like
Yeah.
it pays off down the line. Um, but I also stand corrected because boxing is one of the most team oriented individual sports that you will get into.
Mhm.
I have a massive team, and they without them I can't do what I do.
As someone that has grown up playing basketball sport, I played all through high school, and then obviously made the transition. I started working on doing boxing a little bit as well. There are a lot of similarities, and you see that even with a lot of NBA guys that they go in the offseason, they do a lot of boxing and stuff like that. Obviously not professional, but still just getting the gym.
Yeah.
Would you say that because of your background in basketball and also just, even cricket you talked about, all these other sports, did those help you in the transition to boxing?
I think it did. It did to some degree. I mean, you can take a lot away from cross training in other sports and
Right.
bring it into different sports. But I think it did. I think it did help me, especially the swimming. Like
Yeah.
when I was younger, doing a hell of a lot of dead bolts, like doing a whole length with a breath holder under the water to build up that lung strength and that CO2 resilience and also prime your nervous system for being able to be in stressful situations.
Right. I also wanted to ask you this other component too, and that's when you talk about this journey for yourself. You always start developing, and you said, "Okay, I like this sport of boxing. I want to pursue it." But when did you kind of realize that this could be my future? This is something that I could actually pursue, whether that be at the time amateur rinks, but even possibly at the pro rinks in the future.
What made me think like this sport is for me was I spent maybe about a good part of a year and a few months learning how to box, getting
Hmm.
to a hell of a lot of spars and just uh, up in what I thought was my game. And
Right.
I had my first match, and it was against someone locally that was having his last match before he went pro. And
Mhm.
so it was a hard like people were like, "Why would you do that?" Like, but my coach had faith in me, and I thank him for it. My amateur coach was Ray Ricketts. He was the coach at Bilborough Amateur Boxing Club where I trained, and
Okay.
yeah, went into that match and we had a war, and I was the victor, and it was mixed emotions coming out of it. I was just like, I've never done that before, but it was horrible, but I loved it, and I was like,
Mm.
yeah, this is cool. Um, Subsequently, his club had asked for a rematch, but then they swapped that opponent for someone that they felt would do me over. But I
Mhm.
ended up stopping him. So yeah, I was like, yeah, I'm on one. Don't you, might have made me a little arrogant at the time, but life and boxing has a way of humbling you.
Yeah.
And went on to have a good little streak in my first. It was under my first 10 matches. I think when I got to the seventh one, I came across someone who just handed me my ass, and
Mm.
I was like, damn, there's so much more to this. Like, there's so much more that I can learn and do. And that guy, like, yeah, I got beat, but that guy's style was cool. Like, I want to learn how to do that and more, kind of thing. So
Mm.
just kind of went on from there. It led to me beating people I wasn't supposed to beat at the time. And when I say that, I mean like I started boxing at the age of 18. So I
Mhm.
started training when I was like 16, 17, and
Right.
that's quite late, like compared to a lot of people in England who start at 11 or 12.
Mhm.
Um, and it got to the point where I was probably reached about 20 bouts or so, and I was beating people on the England setup, and I kept doing things like that until maybe got into the range of 30 or 40 fights, and I beat someone on the Team GB setup. His name was Anthony Fowler.
Okay.
And that really rang a lot of alarm bells. People were calling me to get trials for England or Team GB, but I didn't get them that at that point. I had spent years trying to win the ABAs, like getting to the quarterfinals, and then another year the semi-finals, and
Mhm.
then one year I got to the finals. Beat a lot of people. Once again, everyone said I wasn't supposed to beat, and got to the finals, and I lost in the finals, unfortunately. But that got me a Team GB trial, and
Okay.
I relished that opportunity. Took it with both hands. I was in my trial for about 6 months. There was like 40 of us, week in and week out. We go there during the week, go back home on the weekends, and your typical training camp days, waking up, making sure you're on weight, 3 strikes and you're off.
Mm.
Uh, your runs in the morning, but they weren't runs, they were races because everyone wants to prove their point and be the top dog in that. And
Right.
then we'd have like skill based stuff in the morning, be in the gym, pushing weights. Obviously, everyone wants to be a record breaker in that as well. And then the spars, like we'd spar quite a lot, and they weren't spars; they were they were wars. They were more like I could say they were matches, but it was brutal. It was like the matches at the end of Contender. It was like that, but
Mm.
every single time you got to spar, it was that because you knew obviously you don't pull your weight, you don't do as well. Then the next week you just get a piece of paper that says thanks for your effort, thanks for your trial, but we don't feel that we'll need you to move on. And 6 months of that, and it was just left with me and another lad, and I got the nod. So I got on
Mm.
Team GB, and it took me on a beautiful journey of boxing all over the world.
Mhm.
I got to have a feel for so many different styles, boxing the likes of Ronald Iglesias, Bogdan Celestiuk, and Madronov, who
Yep.
as well, who boxed Crawford. Yeah, it was good stuff. It built my experience in boxing, and I don't get me wrong, I had ups and downs during that period in my boxing as well.
Right.
What that made me learn my style, or
Mm.
yeah, made me more acute to the parts of boxing that I excel at, and
Mhm.
also taught me what I needed to work on. Because I don't like to learn the same lesson twice.
Yeah.
One of my rules, you have to learn the first time. You can't keep. You find yourself learning the same lessons, you're not changing much.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, it got to the point the Olympics was on the cards, and it was between myself and a couple of other boxers. I felt like I should have got the nod, but I didn't, which is fair enough.
Mhm.
And I thought I'm not staying on Team GB for another 4 year cycle. I'm turning pro. Like I've left it late enough. So, turned pro in 2016. I turned pro with my now trainer, who was it was like really he was my best friend, more or
Mhm.
less at the time, because like he was a professional boxer himself. I got introduced to him by Ray, and I used to and at his gym I'd gone there and I'd sparred someone and had my way with him. But then he said, "I'd like to spar you sometime." And when I sparred him, he absolutely, yeah, he pasted me, and I was just like, "I'm gonna learn from you." So I did. So I did. And yeah, I was training at my amateur gym, then training with him at his pro gym, and learning the tricks of the trade. And at one point, near the end of his career, he said, "I might get my training license, and I'd like to train you." And
Mm.
I thought, yeah, it's one thing saying it, but we'll see what happens. And then he did just that, and still remember it to this day. He said, "I've got my license, and if you turn pro and I'm your trainer, I will make you a champion."
Mm.
And I thought, like I was on Team GB, I could have gone with there is a route for some boxers on Team GB where they could have somewhat of their pick when they leave. Obviously, if you go to the Olympics, that's just the case. But in
Yeah.
just being on the team, it gives you a bit of an advantage for that. Obviously, the
Mm.
recognition and whatnot. And I thought, my trainer Barrington Brown, he knew my style in and out. He knew me. He was the best choice, to be honest.
Right.
And so, unlike most of those boxes I took a route that basically made me start without that kind of GB boost. Started right down ground level and boxing on home shows and whatnot, starting at the grassroots level. But I'm
Right.
so thankful for it because it also built me to what I am now. Um,
Mhm.
I know what it's like to be on them small hall shows and generate the money to pay for your opponent, pay into the pot, and then you don't know how much you're even gonna get and whatnot. So definitely built the hunger.
Mm.
And yeah, very hungry. And as a as an amateur, I don't feel like I peaked and got to the point I should have done. And I always promised myself, as a pro, I'm gonna excel, and that's what I'm gonna keep doing.
Well, there's something Echo I really want to address that you brought up there, and one of them was the learning component. I feel like so often we see guys that when they reach a certain point in their careers, they get stagnant, and the reason they get stagnant is because they almost accept that okay, I've done it all, I've become a world champion, I don't have to learn anything else. But obviously, they learn quite quickly that you always have to develop, no matter how good you are. There's more to grow, and you talk about that. That no matter what it is, sometimes it naturally just happens. You didn't even anticipate it happening, but you learn how to always grow at each stage, how to take bits and pieces from this person, that person. Has that always been your mentality, or how have you gotten to a place where you said, you know what, I want to make sure I'm always learning, and I always want to take a humble approach?
I've always been a humble guy.
Hmm.
And at the times when I was growing up, where I might have been somewhat overconfident or overzealous with it, life found a way of humbling me. And I soon learned, like, obviously, being humble is a good way to go forward. I wouldn't say imposter syndrome, I'd say I was over humble to where I would uh, treat or keep myself I would go forward in a limited mindset keep myself on the ground. But I
Okay.
think well came out of that because I realized like obviously if you keep going up that hill, you don't work as hard as you work to stay the same. Like
Mm,
so when you go to another level, yeah, it's all right. You've passed some of your limits before. You gotta reset what your limits are. You readjust. If you're good at something, don't be over humble to where you act like you're not. If you're good, own it and
right.
use it. Like be the best you can be, really.
During that story you just talked about in your journey to becoming a pro, there's something else you kind of left out a little bit, I believe, and that's your education standpoint. So you're going through all this stuff that's remarkable in and of itself, being a part of Team GB, doing all this stuff. And for those of people that don't know, if you can correct me if I'm wrong here, you also were going on and you're studying marketing design, communications degree, your web design development for AGA. You're working 40 websites at the same time in different countries, different languages. All of this while still being a part of one of the most prestigious amateur ranks right now, where people are putting all their life into that. How did you balance all that stuff?
I don't know. I had a good sense of tunnel vision. Once I set my mind to something, I'll do it. Even if it's sometimes to my own detriment, I guess.
Okay.
But as I said, come from a family of academics and
Mhm.
having that pressure from home, from Africa, like African parenting style, always brought up with the idea of just being excellent, getting your degrees and whatnot.
Mhm.
Like my brother has a degree in microbiology, and he
Mm.
works in big pharma, and,
Okay.
and worked in big pharma as I was just going into uni. So I mean, there's big boots to fill when that's the case. Um, and yeah, so I I was I never really thought about what I wanted to do past uni. I was undecided at the time, but I knew I enjoyed marketing and
Mhm.
design, and basically I was a huge computer geek, and I liked being farty with it. So I
Mhm.
thought marketing, or well, marketing isn't exactly the arty part of it. It's probably more the advertising, but I learned
Sure.
that, and yeah, I did ICT, media studies, and business studies at college, and I have
Mhm.
a BA honors degree in marketing and communications as well. Um, After that, after I left uni, I got a job. It was actually posted up as a marketing assistant, but on the
Mhm.
job, I soon learned that it was actually a web developer
Okay.
spot, and I just learned on the job, and I really enjoyed it. Uh, being in techie myself, I just enjoyed it. Just took to it,
Mhm.
and it was whilst I was there that I got the offer to be on the podium squad on Team GB,
Right.
and that's something that comes once in a lifetime. I was never turning that down. So I
Mhm.
juggled the two for a bit until I think Argo got sick of me having so many days off and working from home back then. Uh,
Mhm.
so yeah, just fully committed to the boxing then.
Curious then, Echo, when you look at post boxing, obviously you still could have many more years left in the sport, but post boxing, is there something that you already have your mind on that you'd like to pursue?
I have a business in interventions.
Mhm.
I do. Me and my business partner, who's a behavior mentor in
Okay.
schools and head of year or and whatnot. We made a business in behavioral mentorship in the form of interventions in schools. So we'd
Okay.
go to secondary schools, or I think it would be high schools for you. I'm not
Yeah,
sure if
yeah,
it's
high school, yep.
yeah, and we'd ask them for the 20 worst behaved pupils,
Mm.
and we'd have an 8 week camp per se or intervention where we do mentoring and boxing with them. They get
Mm.
they learn how to box whilst we mentor them with our copywritten kind of booklet, and we had
Okay.
a test done on us, or a case study, and it proved that we normally turn around on average 80% of the students that we work with. So
Wow.
we just ran with it. Want to get it to the point my business partner doesn't have to keep working in the secondary schools he's working in, and we can just work on that. But obviously,
Mhm.
doing that whilst I'm boxing, can't commit as much time to it. But it's a good, definitely starting ground for something after boxing, as
Right.
well as a few other projects that I have going on.
That's an incredible idea you guys came up with. So I have to ask then, how did you guys come up with that idea? Because that's something I don't think too many people just think of one day and say, okay, I want to go do this. So what's the story behind that? What gave you guys the idea, the passion to go pursue that?
Whilst I was on Team GB, my mum was teaching at his secondary school. She had
Mm,
sold her textiles business and come over to the UK as well, and she was teaching textiles at secondary schools. And he was someone that worked alongside her,
okay.
and he had asked if I could come to the school and do some boxing lessons for some of the kids.
Hmm.
And yeah, so I did that. And in some of the boxing lessons, I'd be talking to the kids about their everyday life and just advising them. And he said he noticed I was really good at kind of pointing them in the right direction, and
Hmm.
him being a behavior mentor. So one day he just said, should we think about actually doing something with that? Could we make a little business out of it?" And yeah, we kind of parked it for a bit, but then I think it was during lockdown. He said, "You know what? I think we should actually just commit to it," and we did.
Hmm.
So coming out of lockdown, we just got the ball rolling, and here we are.
All right, Echo, so let's go back into your career now. You turned pro about 27 years old. If I were to know you at that point in time, and I would have said, Echo, you're going to be 22-1 one day with 8 KOs, top 5 ranked in organizing body, a guy that could possibly be fighting for world championship in the near future, what would your reaction have been?
I would have said I'm doing exactly what I've set out to do.
Okay.
And I don't mean that from an arrogant space or uh point of view or a point in mind,
Sure.
because like I've always told people my aspirations, but I always tell people, look, I know it's one thing saying it, but I'm gonna prove it. And I
Mhm.
know uh it's a hard ask, but I'm willing to do the work. So there we go. I'm just uh every time I go to a match, I know I have the potential. I know I have the win, but I also know I need to go collect it. So that's what I do.
When you made that first decision, you said, you know what, as a pro, I'm not going to go take one of the high managing or whatever. I'm going to go down the different routes you talked about, obviously, with your friend. When you did that and you had to go be a part of the small host shows, you had to go be a part of these different small events. How much did that help you grow from whether that be as a person, inside or outside the ring? Like, how much did that develop you as a person?
Uh, Boxing has a way of making you find out exactly who you are.
Hmm.
Be it the struggles in the ring, finding out what your limits are, how you react to them, and the struggle and just life outside the ring. It'll
Right.
it'll definitely show you different points of that, and also remembering like boxing is a business. It's a business. It's not a sport. That's one
Hmm.
thing I can learn very fast. And when you think about it that way, you don't take a lot of things as personally as you
Right.
would if it was the other way around.
As for your career, then I want to jump to 2021. You beat Chris Jenkins. You win the British and Commonwealth titles. What was that like?
That was that was amazing. I must
Hmm.
say that was amazing. Let me just switch my light on. I can see the sunset, so it's gonna
Okay, sounds good.
it's gonna incrementally get darker in here.
No worries.
Um, yeah, that was actually quite a little frustrating part of my boxing career because at the time I'd been working so hard to get to the British level, and I knew I had been made mandatory
Right.
or British title shot, but it kept slipping through my grips in terms of the match kept being put to purse bid and like people weren't taking it as much, or Chris Jenkins would say he had an injury or get an injury, not say he had an injury, but get an
Mhm.
injury and then it just prolonged it. And it
Right.
went on for about, I think, a year and a couple months. And then our match finally got made. And then he perforated his eardrum. So then it got postponed again. And
Mhm.
it was at that point that I met my now sports psychologist, Lee Johnson, Sports Mode.
Okay.
And he just opened up my eyes to a different aspect of boxing. Like I've always been a cerebral boxer, but
Mhm.
he really opened my eyes into the sports psychology of boxing. And instead of it went from me being so frustrated, I've been training so hard for my shot at this guy, and it keeps slipping through my hands. It keeps the light keep at the end of the tunnel keeps dimming, and the distance keeps getting longer. It changed from that to actually, I've got an excellent game plan for this guy.
Mm.
I've trained that hard for it. I'm 80% there with this game plan. Oh, it's been prolonged again, but now I've got longer to just sharpen those tools. And when I get this guy, I'm just gonna destroy him, and that's exactly what I did in the long run.
You know, you talk about the component about boxing and how it's going to teach you about yourself inside and outside of the ring. And I think when you talk about boxing, the sport as a whole, it represents life in so many different ways. You're going to get knocked down sometimes. You have to get away to get back up. And there's so many of those different things you take. That's something that was, in a way, obviously, eventually in the ring, but obviously a lot of those other circumstances were outside of it. When you're going through those tough times in life, what gets you through it? How did you switch that mindset? And just ultimately, what do you rely on? How do you get through those tough situations when things don't go according to plan?
Um, My dad's always told me if you're gonna do something, you better do it to the best of your ability. So
Mm.
I can be very overcritical of myself. I can have a win and have so many lessons from a win in boxing because I've been that critical. To me, it doesn't feel like a win. If I feel like I failed at doing this, I failed at doing that, I didn't do that properly, I didn't do this. Um, I I got hit by this punch. It was a silly punch to get hit by, but I've been training for it all this time. So I need to work on this, that, and the other. And obviously, you learn even more from your losses. Like I have a loss in my career, and that was a very pivotal part of my career because it brought more spite out of me, more bloodlust, more um, the willingness to be more entertaining in a different way.
Mm.
Uh, and yeah, I mean, in life that happens as well. But if you're going to be the best you that you can be in life, just have to work hard on it. You got to work on the parts of you think aren't your good parts, and you got to make them your best parts, whilst
Mm.
at the same time simultaneously working on your best parts as well. So yeah, I just strive to be the best I can be.
I want to get into that loss for yourself because you go against Harry Scarf, and so many oftentimes in boxers, you know, that's something that nobody wants to do. No one wants to lose the O in boxing. And sometimes it proves to be detrimental for a lot of boxers. For yourself, obviously you bounced back mighty fine from that. But how did you address that loss and just what was going through your mind as you reproached and kind of got back into boxing after that loss?
Um, how did I adjust from it? It was like there were so many parts of that match. I felt like um I I felt like I should have won it at the time. I was like I was doing this, I was doing that. He was getting he was being very horrible. His nickname. He was throwing elbows. I think at one point, I think he kicked me. He like kicked my knee or found a way to get my knee. But I was just like when it all boiled down to it, the game is the game, and
Right.
he used every card in his deck, every tool in his arsenal, and his hand got raised on the night, and I
Mm.
just thought to myself, okay, I'm disgruntled. I don't agree with it, but regardless of that, um, I forgive myself for letting that happen. But what can I do to make sure that in that situation from now on, my hand is still getting raised and it's not even getting raised because it's gone to points. I've just had my way with them and knocked them out.
Right.
And and that's what made me start making little incremental changes to the way I fought, the way I fought, the way I thought about how I boxed, and also what I enjoyed in boxing and doing it more.
Mm,
I wouldn't say I'm more gun ho because I've worked a lot on my defense now. People
yeah.
think I used to think I was easy to hit, but I was always tricky to hit. But now, like, yeah, now things are coming together. So
Right.
people see the different sides of my boxing.
Has it ever crossed your mind, or do you still even want to get a rematch against Harry Scarf and possibly rerun that fight back?
I mean, everyone wants to avenge their own, but at the
Yeah,
same time, he has to be relevant enough to make it make sense. Like,
agreed.
there's no point just going back for going back's sake. Like, if I've worked so hard on climbing up this hill, I'm not going to go down to, like, in Africa. There's a parable that says when you're going on a long journey, you don't chase every dog that barks at you.
Mm-hmm.
If you've gone all the way down the street and you hear a dog barking at you all the way back up, you're not going to run back for the sake of running back. You keep going on your
Yeah,
journey. So, um, not calling him a dog or anything,
yeah.
but he's irrelevant to me in that respect unless he is in my way.
Absolutely. Your nickname is the Engine. I don't think you could have picked a better name for yourself, but I wanted the backstory. How did you get that nickname?
Whilst I was on Team GB, uh, the coaches always used to say, you don't start as fast as we want you to. But my goodness, the end of the match, it's like you just keep getting stronger and fitter
Yeah.
and faster. They're like, you've got a Rolls Royce engine, and so it kind of came from that.
Okay.
Before that, my amateur coach used to call me Little Arms, because I had big arms.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think with how I used to box as an amateur, I used to box out of the Philly shell, uh,
Okay.
quite stylistic, slick, and whatnot. Uh, yeah, I would have thought I would have got a different name, but you go with people chose the name, so nowadays I just live up to the hype.
As that ability of yourself to kind of like I said, we talked about in the very beginning, but you're someone that we know that you're going to be going still strong to the 12th round. That's always been something you're going to keep going after, guy. And you have that remarkable engine about yourself. Has that just always been who you are as a person? Did it take time to develop that? Or when did that engine personality, that type of ability of yourself come to fruition?
Uh, through boxing, to be honest.
Okay.
All us boxers have a bit of a screw loose, so maybe I'm just a little bit psycho, and then happy about it. But for me, the match doesn't begin when you're fresh. For me, the match begins when you're in the heat of the battle and things are
Hmm.
getting a little bit hard, and that's where I just really excel, and I'm at home. I'm like, yes, okay, we're here. You started
Hmm.
off nice and sharp and fresh, but now you've just slowed down that little bit. I've got your timing locked in.
Hmm.
I've got a good sense for your speed. You've tried to hit me with your hardest shot. I now know what to expect from your shots, and I'm just gonna take you to deep waters and drown you.
I asked you the question a little bit ago as if when you were really young, but after that loss to Harry Scarf, if I were to tell you that, in just about a couple years now, you're gonna be back in the position you are at today, would that have shocked you? Or what would your reaction been to that a couple years ago after your first loss?
After my first loss, I knew I had to make pivotal changes. And as people say, they always say after your first loss, it can change you and whatnot. And I was stubborn to think there's no way in hell I'm gonna let this um change my trajectory and make me just go downhill from here. Like, I'm gonna come back stronger. And so if someone had told me you'll come back stronger, I still would have, just like anyone else, I would have thought, oh, but how? What have I got to do? But
Hmm.
I just went away. I think I'd fought like in November for that match, and
Yeah.
I would pray. I was back in the gym probably 3 or 4 weeks later, sometimes by myself, going in late because I have my own key and it's getting the work in, thinking I need to change this, I need to change that. I made little diary videos to myself, like just setting out my intentions, and I'd watch them every day, and yeah, did what I told myself I was going to do.
And the total timeline there, I believe, was 8 months off you took between that one, the Owen Cooper fight, then when you came back as Owen Cooper and Ben Vaughn. Was that 8 months pivotal for yourself in terms of rebuilding confidence and also making a lot of changes for yourself?
Um, I wasn't really rebuilding confidence. It was more of setting things right that I should have set right,
Hmm.
or making the changes that I knew I needed to make, but maybe dragging my feet with them.
Okay.
So in a sense, you can say I came back with a chip on my shoulder, but it wasn't really a chip. It was just like, okay, you messed up now. Like, pull your socks up, get the job done.
Right. All right, so now we're back in the present time, and I know we start off this interview talking about the Josh Taylor fight, but I have an interesting question that when things were being promoted for that fight, it was being promoted as a fight as almost a last chance for each guy in the fight there. Obviously, the winner would progress and possibly be a world title shot. The loser could possibly move on from boxing since both you guys are obviously upper in age in 30s. Was that in your mind at all? Like, if you were to lose the fight to Josh Taylor, was possibly retiring on the plate for yourself, or was that something that just kind of being promoted there?
It was just being promoted there.
Hmm.
I think, yeah, I think. To be honest, we were both signed with Queensbury. He had come up from the weight below. I think they had told him he needed to prove himself at this weight. Not that he
Right.
wasn't proven. And I'd been asking for the chances, so in a sense, I had to prove myself that I was uh, as good as the opportunities I was asking for. So
Hmm.
in that sense, it was a must-win for both of us. I don't think he'll retire. Um, I think he could be a tremendous welterweight. It's just uh, I thought at the time that picking me as a first fight was just not a smart move.
Yeah. As for yourself, let's look at the future. Number five right now in the WBO. Obviously, we know there's going to be a fight coming up next week on Thursday. 1 week from today, I guess now, will be between Jen Psaki, Brian Norman. That's the WBO line right there for yourself. And people rumored it. You could go after the winner. Is that what you want? Is that the fight you're proceeding that you really want to set your eyes on the winner of that fight?
Yeah, I'd love to get the winner of that fight. And yeah, I will be pursuing the winner of that fight. It makes the most sense.
Yeah. Out of all the fights on the table, if that fight's not on the table, would you want to go fight another guy in the top five, or what would you proceed with? What's your next game plan if that fight's not available?
Um, if that fight's not available, yeah, it would have to be people ranked above me. The only moves are forward moves.
Mhm.
And, obviously Ennis in the IBF. I might be ranked in the IBF soon, or
Okay.
high in the IBF soon. I don't know if he's going to stay at the weight, but if he left, that would definitely create a black hole and a good opportunity for a lot of us. If he was still there, I would relish at the fight as well.
Mhm.
Um, so like, there's many fights out there, but well, gotta wait and see.
All right, so I do want to ask you about a couple different guys now in the weight class. Obviously, I want to ask your prediction. First and foremost, we just talked about Brian Norman, Jinson Saki, taking place 1 week from today. Who do you have winning that fight?
Uh, you would you would think Brian Norman, but you can't take anything from Jin Sasaki. I
Agree.
don't think he's boxed all that much in the last couple of years, but I do rate him. I do think he has a lot of good skills. Brian Norman too.
Hmm.
Wide bladed base, um, power in the way he fights and whatnot. Um, it would be a good match to watch.
Another one is a domestic fight. Lewis Crocker, Patty Donovan. Obviously, it's going to be a highly anticipated rematch. I think it's going to happen in the fall time. It sounds like it's going to happen in. But who do you have winning the rematch?
I thought Paddy. I wouldn't have moaned if Paddy got the first one.
Hmm.
Uh, Normally, people say rematches are just start from round 13. So I would say Paddy. However, Crocker could have learnt from the last match and done
Fair
the
enough.
work he needed to do. So as much as I think Paddy, I'm leaning more towards Paddy. Crocker could pull it off.
Then there's another one that's a little bit controversial. It's going to be happening in July. Manny Pacquiao's coming back, fighting Mario Barrios. First of all, I want to know your thoughts on that. Is that the fight you think should have been made? Should Manny Pacquiao be coming back in the world title shot right away? Or what's your thoughts on that happening? And then who do you have winning that fight?
Uh Obviously much respect to Manny, like yeah, legend in the game, all that.
Right.
But back straight into title fight, I don't know. I don't know about that one. Obviously it's off the merit.
Mhm.
But I don't know. Like, yeah, I don't know. In terms of who I think will win that one, how much has Manny got left, man?
I know. Yeah, that's my thing.
Like the question of how much has Manny got left. I'd say Barrios, but plainly to
Yeah.
the fact that Pacquiao's been retired, he's come out before. Like, yeah, but how
Last
much?
win was 2019. Yeah.
Yeah, like how much has he got left? Yeah,
Hmm.
I mean, if I was
And
Barrios, I'd be like, I would be happy with the match because I mean, you're gonna get to fight a legend. So yeah,
yeah. So I was going to actually ask you that if you were in Mario Barrios' shoes and you had the opportunity to go fight Manny Pacquiao, would you have taken that fight?
I would hit him like a train.
Absolutely, man.
And whatnot, but yeah, I would take that opportunity with both hands.
Okay. And there's two other guys I want to ask you about, and two of them are obviously in a little bit of weight differences. We don't know what's going to happen yet. One of which, Conor Ben, obviously, hypothetically, he could go back to 147. It sounds more like he might be going to 154 or rematch with Eubank Jr. Obviously, that's to be determined. Do you think he's going to stay and come back to welterweight, or do you think he's done with the division?
I don't know. It might it might be a bit painful for him to come back to welterweight now. That's a fight I've always been open to and all.
Hmm.
Uh, who knows? I mean, he's in the position he can float between the two as and when he chooses. It's probably if if he wants to go through the turmoil of making welterweight again after putting on all that muscle.
Right. And the other guys you already talked about, Boots Ennis. Obviously, the rumors are kind of if he doesn't get the unification, he probably wants to move up to 154. And with all the unifications kind of not on the table right now, it seems like that might be the route he takes. Do you think he stays at 147 or is 154 where you think he's going to end up?
From what I know, he's hinted moving up for a while.
Yeah.
Uh, it'll probably be a question of uh, only he can answer, or he won't. Well, he wouldn't if this was the case. But just how painful it is for him to make the weight. If he says there's the need to make the weight, only he can actually know, and that'll
Right.
probably be better as to when the right time to move up for him is.
All right, so a couple questions before I let you go, Echo. One of which is you look at some of these guys we just talked about. Also, you have new names in the mix. Obviously, Teofimo Lopez might be coming up. Haney, Garcia, both are up now. Other things are being moved. A lot of moving pieces right now welterweight. But if you could pick, let's say your top three opportunities to go fight next, whether that be obviously the championship with Boots, or possibly, or the winner Sasaki Norman, whatever it is, who would be your top three opportunities to go out there and fight next?
Oh, well, Norman,
Right.
Boots, uh, Ryan,
Okay.
Ben.
So Ryan Garcia, would you still you'd want that fight even after the last performance then?
Uh, well, I've always liked the way he fought. He'd be a
Right.
brilliant person to fight. Um, you maybe if he performed like that, two fights on the road, then you might think, okay. But yeah,
Okay. Well, Echo, I want to ask you this last thing then. When you look at your next year and a half for yourself, where do you see yourself accomplishing? Where do you see yourself? If I've ever talked to you at that point in time, what do you see yourself accomplishing? How many fights? Like, where do you see yourself in one and a half, 2 years, maybe even heading into 2027? Where do you see Echo Essuman?
I see myself as a world champion, looking to have world champion across multiple belt jurisdictions and belt organizations.
All right. And so, could we see you at fighting at welterweight, fighting boxing for a little bit longer then, or how many more years do you think you got left in the tank?
Only I could know that, but don't worry, I've got a few more years left. I've taken care of myself. I don't take uh, all that much damage, and
Mhm.
the life.
I love it. Well, Echo, my final question I'm wrapping up every single interview with is this. Talk about your legacy. As we just talked about, you still have a few more years left in the tank. But when the day does come, you put down the gloves. What do you want to be remembered for what you've accomplished both inside and outside of the ring?
I want to be remembered as the happiest uh, guy with the most chance or possibility to inflict damage on you in the ring.
I love it, Echo. Well, Echo, I appreciate you for taking time to come on today, man. It's been an honor talking to you, and I cannot wait to see what God's got in store for you, man.
Thank you, and God bless, man.
You as well, man. God bless. Talk to you later. You're always welcome on.
All right.
Appreciate you guys all for tuning into the interview. I'll have that clipped up, edited out, and then posted on my YouTube channel very, very shortly. I hope you guys have an incredible rest of you guys Thursday. I will see you guys tomorrow. There will be a show tomorrow at 3 o'clock for the boxing show. I also will be having a basketball show tomorrow at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. So make sure to tune into those shows tomorrow. But as I said, I hope you guys have a blessed rest of you guys this Thursday. May God bless you guys all, and I will see you guys tomorrow. SchuZ is out. See you guys tomorrow. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the SchuZ Show. I know I wrapped up the show and already told you guys I'm not going to be returning to the show, but as soon as I was about ready to close off the show, I opened up my phone and I saw there was two big breaking news and things that came out. So I figured let's go hop back live again real quick and give you guys my thoughts on that. So first and foremost, breaking news: Jerome Boots Ennis is moving up to 154 pounds. Eddie Hearn has said that Jerome Boots Ennis will move to super welterweight following his dominant win over Montestanionis in April to unify the WBA, IBF, and ring belts. Ennis will return. His return is targeted for August or September. This is what Eddie Hearn officially said. Boots is moving up. Unfortunately, after the Stanionis fight, he had his team around him, the doctors, the tests, and what they're basically saying is Boots is underperforming to his capabilities. This makes for a massive news in boxing. I don't think we're going to recognize it at this moment in time, but the seismic shift that this is going to have at 147 and 154 is huge. For 147, you open the door for a lot of big fights to be made now. Obviously, Boots Ennis was a superior guy at 154. I don't think anybody was going to mess with him. He was the guy at 154. Now, 147. Now at 147, all of a sudden, a lot of things open up now. You're going to have a lot more opportunities, a lot more even match guys, and there's a lot of doors that's now going to be opened up for more fights to be made at 147. Whereas at 154, you're talking about a situation now where Boots enters, in my opinion, the best weight class in all boxing. And he only adds to that now. Obviously, we do not know if Bud Crawford will remain at 154 or if he's going to retire after Canelo. That's to be determined. But just right out the gate, the possibilities of a Bud Crawford and Jerome Boots Ennis fight is now potential again. And that would make for a blockbuster fight. But even beyond that one, you have Virgil Ortiz Jr. That could be a massive fight. Sebastian Fundora, Bakr Mercivaliev, and this list goes on and on. If Tim Tszyu beats Sebastian Fundora, that opens the door for that fight. There is lots of big fights that can get made now at 154. And all we're doing now is adding a massive player, a rising superstar in boxing, into the mix at 154. This is huge for the weight class. And I think it's massive news for both boxing at 147 and 154. Because this is a seismic shift with Boots Ennis now moving up to 154. I'll be probably commenting more on that tomorrow, but I just want to give my initial reaction to that news right there. Also got announced, Mosey Toma will face Dillian Whyte on August 16th in Saudi Arabia. This has already been talked about for the first 3 fights, but now we have the full card. So let's break it down. Headlining the fight, Itoma, Dillian Whyte. Then we're going to have Raymond Ford, Anthony Kakase, which is far and away, in my opinion, the best fight on this card. That fight could be fight of the year. Beautiful matchmaking on that one right there. Nick Ball, Sam Goodman, not a good fight. Nick Ball will destroy him. Hayata Satsumi versus KS Asafak. That's going to be going down as well. And then another very intriguing fight. Philip Hrgovic, David Adeleo will be all on the undercard. That other fight right there is another one that's intriguing to me. When you talk about Philip Hrgovic, David Adeleo has been a guy that I've looked at and said, you know what? This could be an interesting fight to see have happen. I'm not exactly sure what all happens here, but that's the fight that I've looked at and said, you know what, that could be an intriguing fight. Although, one interesting thing is David Adeleo was just reported to have the rematch set with Jamie TKV. I just realized that right now. So I'm going to actually look this up real quickly. I'm going to see if I can pull up the information on this situation because just announced earlier today, we had the David Adeleo, Jamie TKV situation unfold. Let's get right to it. Let's see what we got. I'm going to try to get the exact data right now what we got with David Adeleo. So it appears right now that they're going to go surpass this. So the exact repercussions of this fight. So as I said, the David Adeleo fight versus Jamie TKV was initially booked this morning. It was Jamie TKV British heavyweight title rematch will land on the August 23rd Queensberry show when Queensberry won the promotional. Now it appears that with this new data coming out, that he is now going to be on the Riyadh season card instead of fighting Philip Hrgovic, which is a massive opportunity for himself. The winner will put themselves back into contention. I don't want to say title contention, but into the mix. That's the better word for that one. That's where the winner of that fight will go. However, it appears that the Jamie TKV David Adeleo fight will now not be happening in August. The rematch apparently appears to be off. Even though the rematch was ordered, Queensberry won the promotion for that opportunity. That rematch should be off the table now, which means where Jamie TKV going to go from here? That is to be determined. Maybe we see Dave Allen fight that one. We'll see something else happen, but that's very interesting to see because Obviously, that's going not according to plan what we just discussed this morning. With that being said, I hope you guys do have an incredible rest of you guys' Thursday. I will see you guys now tomorrow. As I said, 3 p.m., 6 p.m. for the basketball show, 3 p.m. for the boxing show. I hope you guys have a blessed rest of you guys' Thursday. May God bless you guys all. And I will see you guys officially now tomorrow. SchuZ is out. See you guys tomorrow.